Everyone, and thank you for joining this afternoon on a very hot afternoon for our this month's Diplomat Diaries series. And we have it's our pleasure and an honor to be hosting Ambassador of Peru to India, His Excellency Javier Manuel Paulinich Velarde, who has been in India twice with a small break. I think around 7 years he has spent in India. He has covered the entire gamut of India and on a range of issues, both at the national level and as well as interacting very closely with our state governments. At a time when Latin America's voice and significance for Indian foreign policy has been growing in Indian over the last few years, and at a time when Brazil has the G20 presidency, we look forward to engaging more on Latin American issues, and therefore it's especially delightful that he could join us this afternoon. Ambassador, I'll give the floor to you for your initial remarks, and then we'll open this up for a conversation and question and answers.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to this dialogue. I think it's important that Latin American, Caribbean countries can have more active role in India. I was, as you mentioned before, ambassador twice. I'm very lucky. Not because I have been twice in India. The first time I was from 2009 till 2015. Now I'm back from 2023 until I think 3 more years. That means 7 years at the moment. Now that I'm returning, first of all, I can see the prosperity, in a way, that India is having, especially in the infrastructure, the production, the trade, even the image abroad. The only situation is the pollution in Delhi. It's a little bit worsening, but nevertheless, we can resist, no problem. And secondly, I find out as well that the foreign ministry and the private sector of India is becoming more avid to know about Latin American Caribbean, as well as in Latin American Caribbean countries to know more about India. Of course, the soft power India has, like yoga, Bollywood, are present in Latin America and Caribbean, especially in my country. But I think the scope of our relations should be even greater, like trade, investment, cooperation. The particular situation between India and Peru is quite interesting because I don't know if you are aware of that, but Peru is the oldest civilization in the Americas, at the level of Indo-Valley civilization here, in Harappa and so on. We have a civilization of 5,000 years old that recently we discovered. That's the funny thing, just 35 years ago. And this is, I think, very important fact between India and Peru. And we can start the same ancestral civilization journey from 5,000 years old. I'm not talking about the Incas. The Incas civilization, as you know, Machu Picchu and so on, is recently only 800 years. But we're talking about very, very old civilizations like Caral. If you Google Caral, then you can realize and surprise yourself that with China, Mesopotamia, India, Egypt, and now Peru, we are cradle of civilization. And I think this is important to put in context the relationship with, in this particular case, India and Peru. Of course, we are not happy only to say that. We have to develop a lot of sectors and with the relationship. But I'm glad that, as I mentioned before, Latin America is becoming more and more important for India and vice versa. I think one of the main features why it's becoming important is because we have a economic complementarity between India and Latin America and Caribbean. And this is important because give you a great potential to increase your cooperation in sectors like trade, investment, services, in general. Latin America, and particularly in Peru, we are huge, rich in raw materials, especially minerals. Just to put an example, Peru is a mining country mostly at the moment, and we have at least 4 of 5 minerals that we are the top exported in the world, like gold, silver, copper, lead, zinc, molybdenum, and we just discovered lithium at the level of Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia. There are some studies that we are only at the moment with these discoveries exploring and exploiting 18% of our potential, only minerals. That means we have 82 ahead. That means, I don't know, 100 years, 80 or years or 100 years, I don't know. The other important sector besides mining, minerals, and so on is agribusiness. We have Brazil, we have Argentina, soya, but even in regional power countries in the region like Colombia, Chile, and Peru, where the 3 medium countries, we are developing quickly a lot of agribusiness sector. Even in our case, it's new completely in our economy. Just in the 5-10 years, we are investing a lot of resources in agriculture, in agribusiness. We are growing with new irrigation projects. In the next 2 years in Peru, we are going to add 100,000 new hectares just to export. And this is why, for instance, we are the top exporter of grapes, blueberries in the world right now. 5 years didn't exist. Of course, a part of avocado, even mangoes. You are surprised, we are the 4th top exporter and the 1st in Latin America and Caribbean. And there are quinoa and artichokes and so on. And on the contrary, we need some pharmaceutical products, we need some services on telecommunication, IT, that in Latin America, we are not so developed like India. Because this complementary situation. It's fantastic to develop more our relationship. Just to finish, I'm glad to inform you that this morning we inaugurated the 7th round of negotiations between a free trade agreement between India and Peru. By the way, it's the only Latin American, Caribbean country who is negotiating such an agreement. 15 officers came from Lima to negotiate this agreement. You can see the importance of the issue. And we expect that at the end of this year, we can finalize this important agreement. Peru has 22 free trade agreements comprising 58 countries. That means we are very open. Our economic situation is perhaps the first or the second in Latin America. Just to put it, 3 examples. We don't have any external debt. Our exchange rate is the same in the last 25 years between dollar. Of course, when there are some political situations go down 10%, 15%, but the exchange rate is 3.8 soles, soles in Spanish is sang, with $1 in the last 30 years. The inflation didn't pass the 2 digits in the last 23 years. And, well, you can realize this is not a lot of normal in our region, unfortunately. But at least in our country, we have this important economic foundation that, I repeat, we can receive some political problems from time to time. I'm glad that you are interested in not only in Peru. I know Mexico has been here. I hope you can continue to invite some important Latin American countries like Mexico. Well, Mexico is already here, Brazil, because we have a lot of future with India, and really this is our political will in all the region, including Caribbean. I think I spoke too much. Thank you.
Ambassador, I think you've touched upon a lot of issues on which I'm sure there'll be many questions coming from the audience as well. I just thought if it would be useful to briefly touch upon 2 aspects. One, since you concluded with the FTA negotiations, if you can give us a sense of why for India, Peru is such a critical partner. Because, as you said, it's the only country in Latin America with which the FTA is being negotiated, and how the fact that you continue to negotiate it through the election period also is very interesting. Because do you anticipate that with a change in government in Delhi, you will have a change in the process, or are you comfortable that even if the government changes post June 2024, the momentum that you have sustained so far in the India-Peru FTA would continue?
Well, we started to talking about free trade agreement with the Congress Party, and they agreed. Remember, I have been from 2009 till 2015. That means Anand Sherman, remember, the Commerce Minister, agreed, and now with Prime Minister Modi, we continue to agree. I think there is no problem with that.
For you, what are the challenges now? What are the sticking points?
The sticking points, of course, I don't go to say you, because precisely they have to negotiate. But for instance, textiles. Textiles is a sensitive sector for both countries. You are huge exporter of textile. But we have as well cotton, we have vicuna, alpaca, that in a way is more natural textile. That is a matter of how the change of value can interact between the technical specificities of some textile or components of the textile with us and vice versa.
So of course, we are talking of India-Peru relations or Peru's foreign policy in a context where the world is also very, very different, say it was what it was 4 years back or before COVID. When you look at it from a Latin American perspective, how do you think this US-China contestation is, or great power challenges that are coming with great power contestation, how strong an influence are they today on how you navigate foreign policy in Latin America today? Do you see that being a constraining factor, or in some cases it might also be that you have more choices, so it's better, more space to maneuver?
The second part. Of course, we have the most important investor in Latin America is the United States, but our most important trader country is China, though we don't have any problem. European Union is our third country in export. But from our point of view, India is missing in this equation. No? And of course, we wanted to have a more active role from India, because if, as you mentioned, if you have more possibilities, you think are more free in a way. If you have only one country who has only a privileged relationship, it's not so good sometimes. And this is why India is quite important in this equation between the United States, China, Europe, and with India.
And one aspect that perhaps if you can talk more about is in the context of Brazil's G20 presidency.
Yes.
What are the expectations? Are there broader expectations in Latin America about what areas Brazil should focus on? Or what is the anticipation about how G20 should be anchored in a world where multilateral institutions do not seem to be as effective as they should be, given the requirements of our times?
Yes, that's an important question. First of all, I think Brazil should copy India to promote Latin America and Caribbean as a member of the G20 like you did with Africa. And of course, we started to talk to Brazil about it. I know it's not so easy, but India did it. Brazil, I suppose, can do as well. And this is important because our presence as a region, as a whole, in this process of cooperation with the G20 is vital, I must say. By the way, congratulations for your participation and leadership that India took in G20. In fact, was quite important. And because the developing countries like Peru and other Latin American countries, we have our own agenda, developed agenda, that sometimes the rich people, the rich countries cannot take into account sometimes. And in a way, it's not so fair. But with Brazil as now chairman chief of G20, I think we have good opportunity, a unique opportunity to highlight our needs in the G20, like did in a way Africa through India.
Let me open this up for your questions, comments, observations to the, and if you have any specific, yes. And please do introduce yourselves.
Ambassador Javier, it's very good to have you here. I'm Ashwin Ahmed from Strat News Global, Foreign Affairs Worldview. Now you raised something that was very interesting. You talked about, India has done an outreach to the global south. You also mentioned that there are certain needs of that which need to be expressed. So how do you think what are the needs that you articulate? How do you think India could perhaps help in this regard?
Just to put an example, the external debt is an issue that in Latin America is present for different reasons. As I mentioned, Peru, fortunately, we are not in that scenario. But to talk with the Bretton Woods institutions through a G20 is more easy than Argentina go alone to talk about reschedule its obligation, financial obligation with MFI. This is why an example is quite important to be present in the G20 economic operations.
What about other organizations like the UN, even Security Council reform?
Well, of course, we support, for instance, Brazil and India, some permanent member of the Security Council, but this is very complex issue. By the way, I have been 5 years in New York in our mission there, and it's very complex. Even the veto is quite complex. In fact, Peru, my foreign minister proposed some qualification of the veto in the current situation of the Security Council, for instance, not to prevail one veto, but at least 3 vetoes at the same time that do more flexibility taking decisions, but nevertheless, it's very unfair to have only 15 countries. Definitely. I think a combination of the Peruvian proposal qualifying the veto with the increase of the membership could be a very good position to some countries accept it.
Good afternoon, Ambassador. I'm Angad. I'm a research assistant at ORF. You were just talking about the M3 reform initiative at the Security Council. I just wanted to ask, what would be the strategy adopted by Peru that this initiative just does not become another option on the book of reforms? Like, there are many. Is there a strategy to actually find it realized?
In fact, having 8 different proposals to reform the Security Council, I think the proposal by foreign ministers is 9. But the problem is not to find any formula, because at the end you can do it. The problem is the political will that some countries cannot permit any change. Especially countries like now, they are not so important like it was the case in 45. Of course, as a diplomat, I cannot mention names of countries.
There are only 5 countries.
But between the 5,
Yes.
there are, the situation is quite big from.
I think most would guess,
Yeah.
would be able to guess.
And on the contrary, countries like India, Brazil didn't have such an important role at that time, but now it's increasing, it's obviously increasing. Then that's a situation that through political will of, especially the five permanent members, can accept and can, but this is difficult. But we have to try, of course, because it's fair to try. It's very fair to try. But at the moment, even this year in the United Nations, there is a sort of reform exercise. Of course, Peru is going to be active, but we'll see it.
Ambassador, you mentioned the ongoing India-Peru FTA negotiations, and the majority of Indian imports from Peru consist of gold. So is this a sticking point as well? Because in the recently concluded India-EFTA FTA, gold was omitted from that FTA.
Well, gold is quite important for India. I know. Since I have been 7 years, I know that gold is not only a metal or mineral. It's more than that. Gold is a cultural issue in India. It's a religious, a family, a wedding. It's a lot of things. You are importing about $50 billion per year of gold. That's a huge quantity, despite that you have gold, no? Of course, but nevertheless. And Peru exports 8,000 billion. We are the largest exporters of gold in Latin America, and I think that's fifth or the sixth in the world, perhaps now. But remember, we have 82% potential in the future. I think we were going to. I think gold should be present in the negotiations, but the details, I think perhaps right now are talking about.
Thank you. Ambassador, this is journalist and scholar Anangshu Mitra. I have one microscopic question. Another one is a bit prosaic. First, why it's FTA? Why it's not CEPA? It could have more integrated economic platform. This is the number one. Secondly, my predecessor scholar already asked. It's something related to gold, so I'm not going that. My question would be then, what about calcium phosphate and mining interest in India of Peruvian, from the Peruvian culture?
Well, the first one is not important the name of the trade agreement with CEPA, FTA. The most important thing is which sectors are in this particular trade agreement. For instance, Chile has a partial free trade agreement only in goods. They negotiate with India 20 lines of sectorial products. But this is not a CEPA, even this is not a free trade agreement. The free trade agreement is an integral negotiation comprised by goods, services, intellectual property right, rules of origin, SMS, investment, and so on. Integral, I mean, comprise all sectors from the economic field as such. And this is why 15 officers are coming from Peru, because we are negotiating an integral free trade agreement.
Sir, my question is related to the infrastructure deal, particularly the Chankay, is that how you pronounce it? The Chankay port deal where China is a primary investor. Given Shanghai, sorry. So, is there any kind of any concerns in Peru regarding the China getting some kind of a social and a political and economic leverage in your country, which has been the experience in South Asia? Thank you.
the concern is not only in Peru, it's in the United States, even in India. The Chancay port, I explained, I don't know if you are aware of that. It's a port, mega port, which is building right now in Peru, and it's going to finish this November because Peru now is APEC, has the APEC chairmanship, and will be the biggest port in the Americas in 4 years. The idea is quite simple. If you wanted to export from Peru to China, India, South Korea, any machines, you have to go to Manzanillo, Mexico, or Long Beach, United States. And then only from these two ports in the North Hemisphere, we are in the South Hemisphere, go directly in a maritime line to Asia. The idea is to avoid that, to save time and resources, and go directly from Peru, from Chancay, to Asia. You can save around 12 days of navigation, and you can save a lot of money and time. The enterprise who is going to run this port is effectively Costco from China, 60%, and Volcan, a Peruvian mining country, is the first producers of zinc in the world. Zinc, Volcan is 40%, 60-40. Yes, there are some concerns. Even, for instance, the Americans told us that well, China is so present there, no, perhaps. But in fact, we are open to any investment. China, in a good lead, made a proposal and was accepted by a private company, because this is a private. It's nothing to do with the government of Peru. It's a private entity. And of course, there is no any idea to accept, for instance, military Chinese vessels. So, no, it's out of the question, just a trade issue. By the way, there are another possibility to build other megaport in the south. Because why Peru? Why not Chile or Colombia or Ecuador? Because fortunately we have the deepest, how would you say, meters in the two. We have 18 meters in the, deep to the ocean. That it's possible with this distance to have a mega port with ex-Panama vessel, huge vessel. And we have another port, Coro, in the south, that is only in projects that, in fact, we are trying to promote to India to participate in that second port, as well as others. No? But nevertheless, I think there is no any problem. It is a commercial line. Even all South America is very happy because they save money, especially soya, the Brazilians. They take more than 50 days to go to India or China because they have to go to the other side, to the Atlantic. Now, Peru, only 20 days. Imagine the time and resources.
Hi, Ambassador. I am Atul Gandotra. I am from corporate world, business world. So I find that the awareness levels about Latin America within our country is more related to Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, but not Peru. At the most, people know about Machu Picchu, Incas. That's all. And if Peru has so much to offer, and you have just now shared with us, what kind of, potential Peru has. India has innate potential, a big potential. So if we have to come together and make a big job out of it, which we can, it's very important that some programs have to be done continuously by Peru under your leadership to increase awareness level about the country within India. And there are exchange programs which are not happening. I've been in the corporate world for the last more than 4.5 decades. I gone up to US, Mexico, but not beyond that because I find that there is no exchange. So there have to be some people-to-people exchange, and that is how, one can really do. So my question is, what is that
Okay.
you're doing? Because you
hope-
pushed in 7 years, which is a fairly good innings,
I hope
Thank you.
I hope it's not a criticism of my labor here. No, I think the free trade agreement is going to change everything in the economic, trade, and investment relationship with Peru and India. This is our card that we are playing. Why I say that? We have with China, we increased in 10 years 18 times the trade with China through the free trade agreement. The same with the United States, the same with South Korea, the same with Japan, the same with Europe. The free trade agreement is going to change everything in the relationship between, because it's an integral instrument. It's not only trade, it's all the sectorial in the economic and investment side. I think for sure it's our experience with these 22 free trade agreements, and I'm sure will be the same with India. By the way, I am aware that the economic trade and investment side of the relationship is not only enough for between Peru and India. As a cradle civilization, I think we have to explore more, for instance, cultural. I have been for one thing. Another thing, I totally aware that India is not Delhi. We started last year, just an example, to organize Peruvian Film Festival in Chennai, Bangalore, Kolkata. Well, perhaps it's not enough, but we started. And we'll continue to start playing as well the cultural card. Yes.
Good evening, His Excellency. My name is Pawan Kumar Singh. I am working for Indian Institute of Management Kozhikode. Indian Institute of Management Kozhikode, which is India's leading management institution based in southern India. Indians' education policy, recent education policy, lays a lot of emphasis on the education, where India wants to be the leader in education services, exchange of education services. So what opportunities you see for the Indian education institutions, like premier institutions, which are in fact as good as world's best institutions, few of them. So what opportunity you see them in Peru, being such a, in fact, large economy, stable economy, and having vast potential for, in fact, sharing India's developmental experience?
Yes, this is an important issue. I am aware of that. I am started to exchange a student, for instance. We just, with a university in Pune, we just sent 10 Indian students from Pune to Peru, and is going to start then from Peru to India. And we would like to replicate this experience that I'm sure will be successful with other universities, other states of India, because as you mentioned before, and it's true, the the academic cooperation is fundamental with India because you are started to be very advanced in AI, in robotic, and we lack that kind of qualification at the moment. And there is a good opportunity to cooperate. I think there are good reasons to believe that this will be a very successful, but not only Peru, in all Latin America. For instance, Woxen University, have you heard about Woxen University in Hyderabad? The president himself, it's a private university, but nevertheless, he wanted to have priority relation with Latin America in terms of in the academic world. I visited the university. I have been in AI and robotic lab that they have. It's fantastic. It's incredible. And we are going to have a working lunch in my residence this Wednesday with 5 ambassadors for Latin America, and the person who is in charge of this particular university works in the programs to start creating a project. No? And of course, this is just one activity, but we have to replicate a lot of activities between the academic relationship between India and Latin America, including Peru.
Thank you.
Ambassador, just to follow up, are there any academic exchange programs at the moment between India and Peru, or academics or student exchange programs?
Yes, the foreign ministry here is very active, but they have only for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, short-term programs that are very effective. And in fact, you are very generous because Peru have a quota of at least 55 per year, all expenses paid by India, yes. And we are, of course, wanted to increase the percentage of opportunities. But it's in all fields, but we have to be more systematic regarding with some priority sectors. But I confess that there is already a good experience with the foreign ministry, yes, that we are very pleased.
Thank you, Ambassador, for a wonderful talk. Just wanted to draw your views on the flux that is in Latin America right now, politically and security-wise. You have something bizarre happening in Ecuador. And then you have a series of security mechanisms being sort of copied from El Salvador, or at least there is a trend that Argentina will now move towards that. In all that, with all that background, where do you assess the political stability of Peru, political security implications of all these developments in Peru, if at all? And what's your forward thinking on that? Thank you.
The most important thing that Peru has a democracy. This is the most important thing, and we have to strengthen the democratic system in Peru. We have some problems in the past. We have a president, Pedro Castillo, who unfortunately publicly wanted to do a coup d'etat publicly. And of course, we can, in the Constitution, it's forbidden to promote any coup d'etat, even coming from the president himself. That is quite curious, no? This is why the vice president took power almost 2 years ago, and she's running the country. Still, of course, there are some dissatisfaction from this, but we act in a constitutional matter. That's the most important thing, in order to protect our democratic system. Then in 2026, we are going to have another presidential election. Every 5 years we have it in Peru. And then we decide by ourselves which candidate, I don't know which will be at the moment, can we choose it. No? But the most important thing is to preserve the democratic system. About Ecuador, it's very complex situations. But at the end, the action to take the police inside a diplomatic mission is unacceptable. From the point of view of the international law, we cannot accept this. Despite that, could be some reasons to perceive that justify, but it's not possible to justify this.
Ambassador, my question is, last year in March, India and Peru had a third joint working group on geology and natural resources, minerals.
Yes.
So can you please share some outcomes of the meeting? Because in the last year, we have seen much progress with Bolivia, Chile, even Argentina, where we have secured 2 blocks of minerals, lithium. So can you talk about, because in our last year, we also released our critical minerals list in which lithium, molybdenum and copper are critical minerals, are strategic minerals for India. And you have vast reserves of those minerals. So can you talk about some progress which have happened on this front?
No, we don't have any progress because we are negotiating a free trade agreement. Of course, these issues will be there in the terms of conditions, eliminate some custom duties, for instance. Yes, it's a process of negotiating, yes.
K.K. Roy Chaudhary, Ambassador. I understand Peru has decided in addressing climate change, increasing renewable share by next year to around 60%, accordingly, proportionately reducing dependence on fossil fuel-based energy and reducing its imports. So how you strategize increasing renewable energy share in your energy portfolio? As that young fellow has just now mentioned about exploiting your huge reserve of lithium rock. So is that in your mind to ultimately excavate that so that renewable energy share could be enhanced? Thank you.
We have a structural plan to increase the renewable energy, of course, and we have a huge investment from Canada and Italy, for instance, in solar energy. And we're increasing, yes. But unfortunately, I don't have any details to transmit. But it's a policy of us to do that, no?
So as this gentleman said that when we talk about Peru, the image of Machu Picchu comes in our mind. I just wanted to know what image India carries to the Peruvians. Like, is it just Bollywood, or we have other appeals, food, education? What are the things that appeal of India that appeals to a general population of Peru?
Bollywood, yoga, Ayurveda is starting strong. Mostly this, the soft diplomacy, we call it, or people-to-people diplomacy, like Shankar.
Ministry of Ayush also started some work there.
Yes.
Is there some progress? Can you share?
No, we just started. We signed an agreement, MOU with Ayurveda, and no, the image is quite good, no, of India, and that's helping, in fact, to the government, the Peruvian government, to promote more activities between both countries.
Just one very quick question, Ambassador. So, I just wanted to understand, we have 2 major geopolitical crises today. How does Peru view the forthcoming proposed Geneva Conference on Ukraine? Does it approve the Zelensky peace formula? And the second question is, does Peru approve of the recent UN resolutions against Israel? How does it stand on that?
No, we are very clear. We follow the mainstream because the situation are quite clear. We reject the Israeli force, and we, of course, vote in favor of to detain the force and to help with humanitarian help. No doubt about that. And of course, we as well, we reject the invasion of Russia because it's against the international law. And we support of initiative, even resolutions. I have a personal point of view about this, the Russia-Ukrainian war. This is a personal, I must stress it's a personal. I think India could play a very active role. I think has all the pedigree, all the conditions to do that. But this is my opinion.
Just one question about tourism.
Tourism,
yeah.
Yes.
So, from India, if we have a US visa, that's applicable for most of the South American countries, I think, yeah? What is the position in Peru as such?
It's the same. The same. If you have American visa, Schengen visa, Canadian visa, Australia and New Zealand, you don't need visa to go to Peru. That means I'm waiting for you in Peru.
Yes.
I mean, you don't need a visa for Peru? No, yeah.
So okay, go ahead.
Ambassador, just wanted to quick comments on what is the current situation vis-a-vis the Rolex scandal that happened a few days ago.
By the way, this is not a Rolex. It's 50 euros Danish watch. Well, we are following the justice in Peru, no? The fiscal, general fiscal is making some how do you say, actions, even went to the house of the private house because the official house cannot enter in the president's private house to check if there is any document. We are following the judicial procedures, yes.
Hello, Ambassador. I'm Sangeet from BW Business World Magazine. BW Business World Magazine. Okay. So recently, India's defense export hit the new height. There is any talk on the defense ties and India's defense export to your countries and further strengthening defense cooperation between two countries?
Yes, Masagon dock, no, in Mumbai. They played a visit to Peru. We have a small SEMA dock, small but very efficient. In fact, we can build submarines by one, not like in India. You can do. In fact, I visit Masagon dock. It's amazing here in India, and there are some conversations to have an agreement between collaboration between both Masagon dock and SEMA dock in Peru. Yes. Well, we have the same problem with China, I must say, because the textile products of China, I don't know the case exactly of India, but China at that time was subsidized by the state. That means that the price of textile, the Chinese textile price were very low if you compare with the Peruvian ones, no? And this is the situation with China. But at the moment, from time to time, there are some procedural issues that we go to the WTO. But still, it's just one sector between 25 sectors with China. That you cannot judge because this particular sector or this particular problem to avoid any negotiation of a trade agreement. The proportion is quite clear. No? Yes.
But still, you mentioned in the Deccan Peninsula, in the southern part of your country, you're looking for an Indian interest from the port. Is it something the company begins with A, alphabetically? And which is the port? The name of the port?
Coro.
Sorry?
Coro.
K-O-R-E.
No, C-O-R-I-O. Coro.
Thank you.
It's a project. It's not building anything now, but has a huge potential because the profound metric is 30 meters. Is the deepest in all Pacific Ocean coastline. This is why it's possible to build a mega port like Shanghai that has 18 meters.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Excellency. Thank you so much for this discussion. Speaking about the mining and trading of critical minerals, as we did, I just wonder how important in these strategic deliberations is safeguarding indigenous rights and also environmental protection, especially with the advent of climate change for you and for the country?
No, in fact, one of the situation why we are started to be slow in mining investment is because we are aware that and we request any mining project to environmental estudio medioambiental, environmental study, quite rigid, I must say. This is why, but it's necessary, because otherwise we becoming predators of our own rights of the people, and it's not possible. Like the companies, have to fulfill these obligations.
Thank you, Ambassador. You've been very kind and patiently answering all the questions. There was, I think, as you can see, there is a lot of interest. And you can also see that perhaps people want you to do more. So there is a lot on your riding on your shoulders, I guess. But thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for answering a plethora of questions on a range of issues, which shows also, I think, the expanding ambit of India-Peru relationship, from ports to trade and investments to mining and multilateral cooperation.
And tourism.
Tourism, yes. We managed to solve the visa problems. All of you can easily think of going to Peru without worrying to go through his office. So I think it has been a learning experience, and hopefully we can continue the conversation about Latin America, about Peru, and about India's relations with Latin American continents. Thank you so much. Let's give him a big round of applause.